Okay, I think we're start. Hi everyone, thank you for joining us for the video. We are going to conversation with I'm getting some.
Karishma,
Sorry,
you have an echo happening.
is it better now? Okay, cool. Yeah, sorry about that. So we have Josie with us today. She's a UAL graduate too. She studied at CSM. She studied textile design, and right now she works with women in Sri Lanka, and she's focused on building a social enterprise where she's working for women empowerment. So I'd like to welcome Josie to please take us through her work that she's doing with her organization.
Thank you so much, Karishma. I'll just jump in and share my screen. Okay, great. Can you see that okay? Perfect. Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me to do this. It's really great to join with other UAL graduates in a country very close to where I work and learn from you all and share what I'm doing. And so AMMA is a social enterprise and sustainable fashion brand that creates zero waste garments and accessories. We transform plants and food waste into natural non-toxic textile dyes whilst providing training and employment for marginalised women. And we've been running for around 3.5 years. And so I went from the UK, oh sorry, there's like lots of people jumping up. I went from the UK, graduating 2015, and then about a year after graduating, I moved out to Sri Lanka, really kind of motivated by a friend of mine who was working in Sri Lanka, working with children and young people, providing kind of really meeting their basic needs and necessities. And then through that started working with them to provide employment opportunities for women living in Nuwara, which is a town, it's the highest town in Sri Lanka. And just to give you some context of where we're based, it's a real agricultural and tea kind of industry, the main kind of employers in that area, along with a few like garment factories. But it's really where all of the vegetables are kind of grown for Sri Lanka. The climate is much cooler, so an annual temperature of around 16 degrees, and it's got a population of around 43,000. And that's a mixture of both like the Sinhalese, the Indian Tamil community who are working on the tea estates, and then the Sri Lankan Tamil community as well. So it's a real kind of, like much of Sri Lanka, but a real mesh of different cultures in one place and different religions. And what always makes me find so much joy about this town, because it's often not really the place that people want to go when they come to Sri Lanka, because it's when people come to Sri Lanka, they want like beautiful beaches or safari or jungle, but or jungle. But yeah, Nuwara is a very different kind of climate and an experience, and it's often very rainy and foggy and misty. And so we've kind of had to overcome these challenges. But for what we're doing, actually, the amount of rainfall, the locally grown agriculture, the opportunity to grow plants and have lots of water for dyeing is actually really perfect for what we do. So this is my team at the moment. We started off very small, just with me and 2 mums really working in a very small preschool outbuilding. And I was just training them up in natural dyeing, in sewing, and creating really basic products. And quickly we kind of moved into the next workshop, which was slightly bigger, and then the next one, and then the one we're in now. And we're about to move into our 5th workshop in 3.5 years. So like business people would definitely say maybe you should think ahead and not move into a workshop like slightly bigger each time. But we've we kind of didn't really know what AMMA would become, or we didn't know how it would grow. And it's really initially through the Sri Lankan ecosystem of like other like-minded businesses. Sri Lanka's got a really wonderful organization called the Good Market that is a real incubator for socially good businesses. And it was through that platform originally that we started to get our first orders, and then through word of mouth and social media, and we started to produce things for people in Japan and Australia and further afield. And it's through that that we've been able to grow. And so now we have 10 women that work for us, and they're aged between 19 and 65, a really big spectrum. And I think of different religions, but all kind of living in and around Sri Lanka's tea estates. And, you know, the tea estate community has a whole myriad of challenges and problems, and which AMMA is trying to work to kind of contribute to. So the problems which AMMA kind of really works to solve is around this issue of limited rural employment. And even talking to like some of you guys and starting to understand that, you know, these issues are so similar in India and other countries geographically like close to us as well and around the world. But for our area, this limited employment opportunities really results in women migrating to the Middle East or large cities to find work. And for example, our workshop manager, Mina, is a really, is kind of an example of this. And you know, she was working in a garment factory locally, but just due to the lack of a really small wage and it not being safe for her to walk there through the woods at night during her night shifts, you know, she took up an opportunity to move to the Middle East to work as domestic help or in a supermarket. But the stories that have come out of that are just really, really harrowing. And really through providing opportunities for women where they live within their communities, it just like means that children are raised with their mother present. You know, often children are left with extended family or other relatives or neighbors. And yeah, so providing a mother present is just really important. And so AMMA kind of works to solve that. And then the other challenge is really that the fashion industry is contributing to 20% of fresh water pollution worldwide. And so we only use plants and food waste to create our dyes. And this has allowed us to set up like local supply chains with juice bars and cafes around Sri Lanka, and use Sri Lanka's crazy but functioning transport system to move those up to us in Neurelia. And this has allowed us to start modeling what an alternative, more regenerating industry in Sri Lanka could look like, which is one of the things I'm really excited about. And then the third problem is that a lot of these kind of native textile skills are becoming extinct because the influx of, you know, cheap synthetics into Sri Lanka means that handloom and kind of forms of embroidery are just not being practiced anymore because the local market is really shrunken. And so we've working with a wonderful woman called Mary, who, you know, she's 65 and worked in all of the weaving centers in the area before they closed down. And we were able to bring her in as our teacher, and now she's teaching, you know, our women who are in their 20s how to do these skills. And you know, that I feel passionate about this because wherever you go in the world, you know, there's weavers in pretty much every country, and they'll all have their own method of how they weave or the kind of styles that they produce or the colors that they use and the techniques that they like follow. But it's such an intrinsic language which really represents a culture, and I know that's really true in India as well. And for that, just to, for Mary not to pass on all of her knowledge is just like heartbreaking. So I'm really pleased that Mary's been able to do that, and we've been able to yeah, kind of facilitate that happening. So like I mentioned, like in terms of the solution, through like businesses like AMMA, women can receive training and employment and earn a fair salary in their hometown, which keeps them, which contributes to the local economy. It means that they have more influence over the household finances and the shift of power dynamics kind of happens. Children are cared for and grow up with their mother present. And then we work to provide life skills to support with other aspects of like some of the challenges that they face. So even helping them open a bank account, which many of the women that came to us didn't have a bank account. And so those kind of basic levels we can support them in, and then huge issues of kind of mental health and postnatal depression, which aren't spoken about and which are kind of really seen as taboo. But even through providing an opportunity, if it's an hour a week, for our team to sit down together and to like answer through some questions and give them some conversation starters, through that they can just have a place to talk. And whether it's if they like cook lunch together, you know, once a month, or just allowing those opportunities for women of different ages to interact in a safe environment. And I think it is this idea of offering a safe environment, which is really, many of the women have found really, really beneficial. And then, like I mentioned, in terms of the environment, the fashion industry at the moment is such a, you know, a linear kind of way of working. It has a start and a finish. And with the growth of like consumption and how things are just getting crazy out of hand, and COVID has really highlighted some of the challenges within the fashion industry, within the supply chain. And even in Sri Lanka, we're seeing, you know, the garment factory in our town, which employs 1,000 people, is on the brink of like closure. And so I think the fashion industry needs to start really like moving away from this model of like overconsumption and start to think really differently about it. And we're a really small business, and our practices aren't mirroring, you know, the garment factory or kind of that centralized factory approach. But I think there's a place for this in the solution, and it's just about, it takes longer. That's the problem. Like everything takes longer, and it will take longer to figure out ways to scale it as well. But really looking at how we can go from sourcing these plants and food waste, you know, materials which are already in existence, to extract the color, how we can, you know, use those products to dye our yarns by hand weave those into fabrics, make our products, and then using those natural materials, look at how we compost that back to earth. And as we look at AMMA going into the next stage of like what we're really passionate about, I think us looking at how we can start growing our own dye plants and providing opportunities for micro growing within the tea estate communities means that yeah, we can provide more opportunity for people to earn an income. So these are some of the colours that we can get from our plants and food waste. And, you know, some of these colours are specific to Sri Lanka, and some of them, you know, you can also get in India and Thailand and other countries that have a real big heritage of using natural dyes and are still practicing with them. There's some of my favourite ones are that, I don't think it's in the chart there, but our workshop manager, Mina, discovered that there's an orange coconut in Sri Lanka called tambili, and it's usually the water is drunken as like coconut water, but the orange skins she discovered gives a really beautiful kind of like pink color. And for avocado stones, we can get pink. It's kind of this color in the yarn that you can see right in the center. And then, yeah, some real like obvious things like onion skins and turmeric. And then eucalyptus leaves. Our town is surrounded by forests of eucalyptus trees. And so whenever there's a storm, branches just fall down, and you'll see our team kind of driving around in a tuk-tuk collecting all the branches. They're super resourceful. And then things like marigold flowers, which grow really well locally, tea, and pomegranate skins, which we work with a big juice chain across Sri Lanka to source their waste, and they put it on the back of a bus and bring it up to us in Neurelia. And I just think so much of this is about looking at what we have already and what we can use which is readily available to us, which doesn't really cost us anything. And it's like an act of resourcefulness. And I think when we think about design, we often are, you know, I've started to learn that designing within boundaries is actually very freeing. And when you don't have boundaries and you're just like, oh, we can start with anything, then it's very difficult to even get started. But, you know, when we have these boundaries around, okay, actually we just have pomegranate skins which are in season at the moment, or we just have avocado stones, which are avocado stones only available for like 4 or 5 months. So how are we going to maximize the potential of the collection that we make during those 5 months using avocado stones? And it starts to give a really different flow to how you think about design, and also working within the women's skill sets. And you know, they started very early on. You know, some of them previously could stitch, but in terms of natural dyeing, all of them have been learning from scratch. And the reason I wanted to start using natural dyes was because, you know, at CSM, I did a lot of dyeing, and weave was my kind of like focus. But a lot of the dyes that we were using were acid and reactive dyes, and had skull and crossbones on the boxes, and you had to use like, there had to be extractor fans, and you had to wear all your protective equipment. And I was just like, man, imagine, like, I'm doing this on such a small scale. When you think about the whole of the garment industry doing this kind of thing, you're like, how is that good? There must be a better alternative. And I think it's like that there's 8,000 synthetic chemicals used to create our clothing and accessories. And actually we have so much which is available to us. And yes, there's challenges with using plants and food waste in terms of like light fastness and color fastness. But actually, if the energy was put into, and the technology was put into, okay, how can we solve those problems, instead of just like moving to the synthetic alternative, then actually we would start to figure out some of those solutions. So I realise that time is moving on quite quickly. I just looked at the clock. So yeah, so really also celebrating that craft-based work is the second largest employer of women globally, which is incredible. But if that's the case, then how can we start collaborating together? How can we, you know, unite as, you know, within this industry and really push it forward? How can we like find routes to market which are, you know, which work and which help people understand the work level and the value that goes into creating these products and how they're so different to, you know, what we do. So quickly, I'll just briefly go through this, but the way that AMMA works in terms of a business is we've got our training center, which is not for profit, manufacturing, which is for profit, and tourism, which is for profit. And, you know, really, we're kind of working now at how we really formalize this structure, because we took a very kind of like apprenticeship approach to our training, and everyone would kind of just work within the space and learn as they go. But as we grow and we scale, these are the kind of hurdles that we're going to have to overcome in terms of how do we get women really skilled in these areas so that we can create consistency and good quality and reliability. And then manufacturing, you know, how can we reach much wider global markets with what we're doing, as well as local markets? Where do we sit? And then we've seen tourism and people wanting to learn about natural dyes really, really grow over the last couple of years, which is exciting. So I want to bring you back to the things that we've been making and working on over the last kind of year. So we've recently done a crowdfunding. Well, we're in the middle of a Kickstarter. We reached our target on Thursday of raising £10,000, but we are looking to try and push that to £15,000 to start growing our own dye plants and replacing and upgrading our dye equipment. But for instance, the jewelry kind of here on the left, that was designed by like our two youngest like teenagers, and there was just some downtime in the workshop, and they started playing around and working with Mary, who was 65, and our weaving teacher, who taught them how to make this rope out of our naturally dyed yarn. And so they took that rope and then made it into these pieces of jewelry that we then just kind of refined. And I just loved that collaboration between two very different ages. And then working in a really zero waste way. So in terms of how we think about clothing, how can we, think about, so this skirt, for instance, is like one size. So the way that we've created it, it fits everybody. So trying to overcome those hurdles of also selling online and with the challenges of sizing and all of that kind of thing, thinking about all of those different elements and really taking inspiration from the sari as the ultimate zero waste garment and the kind of one size fits all thing. How can we kind of really create that? I actually wanted to show you quickly our Kickstarter video because I think it brings everything together really well and shows you inside the workshop. So yeah, I'll share that now.
AMMA is all about the women, mothers and daughters. We create sustainable garments and accessories, handmade ethically in our rural Sri Lankan workshop. In doing so, we're creating opportunities for women to live and work within their communities, raise their children and gain new skills. This campaign aims to raise £10,000, allowing us to generate cash flow so that we can continue to keep our workshop open, our AMMAs employed on their full salaries, and provide more training and employment to marginalised women. After such a disruptive year, we're proud to be releasing our new collection of zero-waste garments and accessories, all of which are dyed naturally using plants and food waste and hand-woven in Sri Lanka. I'm Josie, the founder of AMMA. I started AMMA because I believe that wholesome employment opportunities are key to women having greater autonomy in their life. For the last 4 years, I've been living in rural Sri Lanka, close to the AMMA workshop. Currently, I'm in lockdown in the UK and haven't seen my team in person since January. I couldn't be prouder of the local leadership shown by my partners, Mina and Johanna, during this time. It's their determination to scale AMMA and reach more women, which has been the catalyst for this campaign. In early 2020, with 3 years' experience, we began the pursuit of becoming even more sustainable, prioritizing the creation of our own artisan products and selling direct to consumers. With help from zero-waste designer Isabella Goggin, our team went through an intense period of upskilling and training to bring you our new collection of garments that embody our principles and gentle aesthetics. 100% handmade, naturally dyed and hand-woven, each garment is reversible and zero waste and provides employment to our team of AMMAs. Sri Lanka is at the heart of our journey and continues to inspire us today through the colours, designs, the people, and the transformation of place. We feel passionate about protecting and conserving Sri Lanka's rich textile heritage and are working to open source and become a model for a local regenerating textile economy. We want our women to know that their work is seen, appreciated, and valued. That's where Kickstarter comes in. Our team wants to do what they do best, create. So help us bring our workshop to life with our new artisan products, creating beautiful grown colour and gentle textile processes. By supporting our campaign, you'll be supporting our AMMAs to do what they love to do.
Okay, so that hopefully gives a bit more insight into kind of everything that I've spoken about and a glimpse into the workshop. But yeah, in terms of, I'm going to whiz through this really quickly, in terms of how the clothing works and how we thought about like how we design things, it's about, yeah, if you provide something which is reversible, and that something which is reversible is 2-in-1, uses our different colors, uses our fabric to the best of its ability, is simple and that is more timeless. That's kind of the thought process that went into it. And then this is kind of the progression of our workspace and of our studio as we've gone along, and really starting in this space on the left, which was this little outbuilding in a preschool, moving slightly down the road to a slightly bigger garage, and then into the space that we're in now, which allows us to have a couple of hand looms, the kind of equipment to make the weaving, and then a big kitchen for dyeing. This was my little diagram of where everyone was going to be. And so this is the layout of how we kind of work our space. But weaving equipment is huge. And so we've kind of gotten to the point now where we're like, okay, maybe we need to find somewhere even a bit bigger. But the town that we work is very kind of lots of hotels and lots of residential housing. So finding a good space is quite challenging. But yeah, that's AMMA, and that's kind of what we've been working on. And yeah, any brief questions, so welcome.
Thank you so much, Josie. That was really, really, really exciting. I'm so excited that we got to share that with you and see it. You're doing some incredible work. The colors are amazing, I must say. I have a really quick question for you. Why Sri Lanka? How did that happen for you?
So Sri Lanka happened when I was 18, and I had a really great friend who was running a organization there that worked with children and families, kind of meeting their like essential needs. And I actually didn't get into university, so I applied for fashion the first time, didn't get in, and so my mum was like, you need to go somewhere, like go and open your mind. So I went out to Sri Lanka for 3 months and worked with her, and that was definitely where I kind of fell in love with textiles, and my journey into that kind of continued. So when I went back to the UK, I did my art foundation and knew that I was a weaver. It was just one of those, like, you know, when you just have this thing, you're like, I'm definitely a weaver. And so ended up going to CSM to do weave and dyeing, and then kept that relationship with my friend over that period of time, and went back during the summers. And then on graduating, she was just like, we have this group of people that really wants to do something. Could you do anything? And for me, that was just totally the like nudge I needed, because I didn't want to go and sit in an office and work at Topshop, like designing fabrics. That was not my idea of a good time. And that's amazing for some people and exactly what their calling is. But for me, it was about like practical engagement within communities and really understanding how the textile industry works across borders, like you mentioned, and internationally. And I think, you know, I grew up in South London in an area which has a big Sri Lankan community. And I often think, like, why Sri Lanka? And I think it probably originated from there, that, you know, my friends were Sri Lankan, and I would go into the market in Tooting, and there would be like saris, and like, that's the incredible thing about London, right? And yeah, something that's really been important to me and guided me through my journey, for sure.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. Do anyone have any questions? Anyone has any question? Like really, like one question would be great.
I have one question. Are you open for, let's say, internships or collaborations with UAL or somebody else outside the UAL community?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yes, totally. Like, we've got a girl starting interning with us in January who's at Leeds Uni, and she's doing it as part of her industry year. And obviously with COVID at the moment, it's very difficult. Sri Lanka's airport is still shut. So she's not able to come out to Sri Lanka, but there's still kind of loads that can be done from the UK and elsewhere. And we're really looking at how we can facilitate like that remote working and still impacting Sri Lanka. But I love working with people, and it's a very small team, like it's really just me. So any extra help is always very welcome.
Thank you so much, Josie. Thank you for your time. And we'll see you again tomorrow. You're on our panel tomorrow, so we'll hear more from you tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have our next session starting at 2:30 with Kalol Datta and Akanksha Kamath. So we hope to see you guys back then. Until then,
Bye.
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 That was really, really good.
Yeah.
Zoe.
Have to close